Hi, fall starters. Going to walk you through some financial aid do's and don'ts that will hopefully help you get set up for the school year. So here is what we're going to cover. We're going to talk a little bit about scholarships. I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step of what you need to do for financial aid. I'm going to quickly walk you through some other factors to consider and some things to think about as you're putting together a budget and what you're going to need to do each quarter in law school, and then who to contact if you have financial aid issues. So first, we'll talk about scholarships. So if you're awarded a scholarship, you got that at the same time as your admission decision. You're guaranteed for that scholarship as long as you stay in good academic standing for 9 quarters. There's one exception to this if you take some summer classes and you're only taking a few hours. If you contact me, we can move some of your scholarship into that slight summer quarter and basically spread it out over 10 quarters. But otherwise, we're going to award that scholarship to you anytime that you enroll for 9 quarters. We're going to award it to you anytime that you enroll at least half time. If you're under half time, so in one of those small summers, you do need to tell me if you want it. But you get 9 quarters worth of scholarships. If you came in with less than $24,000 a year after your first 3 quarters, if you have a cumulative 3.6 GPA, any quarter that you have a cumulative 3.6 GPA, we will bump you up to $8,000 a quarter. Okay. Um, so walk you through kind of this step by step. First step, if you plan to take out any loans, you need to file a FAFSA. If you're not planning to take loans, you don't need to file a FAFSA. You're going to want to make sure you have an FSA ID. You'll choose Baylor as a recipient. I have the code listed there. Baylor Law School is not separate. You will just send it to Baylor. The FAFSA's year is for fall through summer. So you will not have to file another FAFSA until you get ready to start classes a year from now. I put the link on there for where you will go to file the FAFSA. Want to make sure that you don't choose the federal work study option on the FAFSA because it won't be awarded to you. And you just need to note that all law students are independent, regardless of whether or not your parents claim you on their taxes. Really, the purpose of the FAFSA is to kind of verify your identity. Once the government does that, then they kind of turn on the faucet, if you will, to allow you to receive loans. It's not going to have any impact on the amount of aid that you'll receive because we do not do need-based aid. So don't worry too much about what it says that you're going to owe once you file the FAFSA. Really, the important thing is to get it filed so that they can give you access to those loans. So after you do that, you're going to review your award. So the financial aid office has started processing packaging aid. So if you filed the FAFSA within a few weeks after that, you should receive an award. They send you an email to your Baylor email address saying you've been packaged, and then it'll link to BearWeb, and you can go into BearWeb and see that award. All that will be listed in there is your scholarship and the federal direct unsubsidized loan. Those two things will be listed. Everything else will not be listed, even if you've gone ahead and applied for a private loan. So to figure out kind of what you're eligible for, you're always going to be eligible for the cost of attendance. Cost of attendance is this number that the school sets. It's what they think you might need for tuition fees, housing, books, living expenses, all of that. If you go into BearWeb, you'll see it kind of broken down by billed and non-billed charges. That is not even necessarily what you're going to be billed or what you're going to spend. It's just showing up or showing you how they came up with this budget. Really, the cost of attendance is the budget for an average law student taking the average number of hours. So it's $33,437 for this fall for a full-time student. You will see that your cost of attendance varies slightly between each of the quarters. It's slightly higher in fall and spring because they do build in insurance into those 2 quarters. And then in winter and summer, they don't. That's not because you're going to be charged for insurance, but if you choose to get the Baylor student health insurance, you pay for that twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. So they build it into that cost of attendance. The cost of attendance is built on the assumption that you will take 14 hours for anybody who's taking 10 hours or more, which is a full-time student, you're going to be eligible for that cost of attendance, regardless of how many hours that you take. So you all will be taking 14 hours this fall, but you'll be taking 15 in the winter, and your cost of attendance will stay the same as if you were taking 14 hours. You will take 12 in the spring. Your cost of attendance will stay the same. So it's just showing you the budget, and that is also the ceiling on the amount of aid that you can get. So the university is on a 2-semester, 1-summer system. What that means for you guys is they package fall through spring is packaged together. So if you go into Bear Web and look at your package, you will see fall, winter, spring. And then if you were to take classes next summer, you would get kind of a standalone package for the summer. Then it'll repeat next year. So you've got that cost of attendance, you'll see your scholarship on there, and then if you filed the FAFSA, you'll see federal direct unsubsidized loan. You'll see your cost of attendance and you'll see your scholarship. Under that, you'll see net cost. Net cost is basically what's not covered by scholarship. If you take that and subtract the unsubsidized loan, what is remaining is your other eligibility. It may be listed as alternative loan eligibility. So you know how much aid you're eligible for, that cost of attendance. So how do you kind of fill up that cost of attendance? Obviously, first chunk of that will come from your scholarship, which you know about in your admission letter. If you are a Texas resident and you have filed the FAFSA and you've done a Texas residency verification form, which they will ask you about, you may be eligible for something called the Texas Tuition Equalization Grant. It is a grant sent to us by the state of Texas. Most years, it's not always the same amount. We don't always know when it's coming, but I know that they have been sending those out this year. So you might see that extra grant on your account if you're a Texas resident for about $4,000 or somewhere around there. It's a grant, so you don't have to pay it back. So you might see that listed under your scholarships and grants. You got cost of attendance. First chunk will come from scholarships and grants. After that, if you filed the FAFSA, you will be awarded up to $50,000 a year in federal direct unsubsidized loans. You get that just by filing the FAFSA. There's a program limit of $200,000. Law school's only 3 years, so you shouldn't hit that $200,000 amount. There is a lifetime limit of $257,000, $500 for all federal aid. So if you were in some graduate program before and took out some Grad Plus loans or some other unsubsidized loans, you may be hitting up against that cap. If you just took out undergrad loans, you should not be hitting that cap because that limit for undergrad loans has always been $57,000 anyway. So say that you get that full $50,000, it will be spread out over fall, winter, and spring. Now between that and your scholarship, you cannot exceed cost of attendance. So if you have a higher scholarship and that $50,000 would push you over cost of attendance, you're going to see that you don't get that full $50,000. Now for these loans, interest does accrue during school. So it's dispersed each quarter. So it will disperse in the fall, the winter, and the spring. And after it disperses, interest will begin accruing. They're fixed interest rate loans. So for this next year, so until July of next year, any loans that disperse have an 8.07% fixed interest rate. They'll reset the interest rate for new loans starting next year, so keep an eye on that. These loans have a 1.057% origination fee. Basically, that means that the government takes off a fee off the top. So say that you had a $100 loan and they charge a 1% origination fee. You would still have to pay back $100, but you would only ever see $99 of it. So in order to account for origination fees, they're going to raise your cost of attendance just slightly to account for those origination fees. So you do have a 6-month grace period after you drop below half time, so below 5 hours. Summers don't count. So for most of you, that will be after you graduate, you'll have a 6-month grace period on these loans. These are going to be eligible for standard repayment plans and a RAP, repayment assistance plan, which is an income-based plan. We will talk to y'all in great detail about those repayment plans when you get ready to graduate, but you're going to be eligible for both income and income-based and standard repayment plans and public service loan forgiveness as well with these federal direct unsubsidized loans. All right, so just to remind y'all, Cost of attendance is the ceiling on the amount of aid that you can get. Scholarships and grants will be the first chunk. Then up to $50,000 will be from federal direct unsubsidized loans. If you still have a balance after that, then you would want to go to state and private alternative loans. So I included the link there. You can also just Google Baylor Preferred Lender List. It will take you to a lender list where you can sort and filter by all sorts of different things. These might have variable, might have fixed interest rates, a variety of origination fees, variety of credit or cosigner requirements, and they're going to have a variety of repayment options. So I would say on the state and private alternative loans, just be cautious and careful and really look at those terms. But sometimes you can get some pretty good interest rates on those loans. So you just want to do your due diligence. If you're planning to use VA benefits, I put the website there. You'll need to work with the VA benefits office on main campus. I recommend that you do that in plenty of time. They actually have a timeline on their website. There are already a couple of steps you can take care of, and then once you register in July, there'll be some other steps you can take care of. So the VA, if you're using VA benefits, will put basically a placeholder on your account saying that you're planning to use benefits, but the VA never officially sends aid until after the term begins. But as long as you have that placeholder on there, your account will be balanced. You just won't actually physically get the money until after the term begins. And the last type of aid is federal work study. Financial aid will not award federal work study to you even if you select it. The only exception to that requires a discussion with the associate dean, and that will happen later on in your time. So just to recap everything I've said, you've got your cost of attendance, which is the ceiling on the amount of aid that you can get. You've got your scholarships and grants, will be the first chunk. That federal direct unsubsidized will be the second chunk. State and private alternative loans, kind of your final chunk, and then VA benefits operate separately, and we don't have work study. Okay, so after you file the FAFSA or apply for private loans, there'll be a few things that you need to do. For private loans, you're going to have to do master promissory notes, perhaps some counseling, some verification with them. For the federal direct unsubsidized loans, for the first loan that you take with Baylor, for law school, you'll need to do a master promissory note, and you'll have to do online entrance counseling. You can do that at studentaid.gov. BearWeb will also remind you that you need to do that. You just have to do it for this first time. After that, you won't have to do it every time. I should say for your federal direct unsubsidized loans, you will need to go into BearWeb and actually accept the loan. Any private loans that you apply for, you're applying for a specific amount, so you don't have to accept those. But for federal direct unsubsidized loan, you'll have to go in. There's a drop-down box where you either have to accept, decline, or there's something that says modify, where you can accept a partial amount. BearWeb will remind you what needs to be done. And then the last thing you're going to want to do is settle your account. So as soon as possible, no sooner than 90 days before the term starts, you're going to want to apply for private loans. I say before the term starts. You can do it once for this entire year, and then you won't have to do it again until next summer if you take summer classes, or again in the fall. But really, you don't want to do that until about 90 days before the term starts, because sometimes credit checks can expire. And then the other thing that you're going to want to do is set up your refund through BankMobile. So if you go into BearWeb, you can just Google Baylor loan refund, and it'll show you the steps. But through BearWeb, you're going to be able to link to a website called BankMobile, where you'll input your bank account information. And that way, if you get student loans, they'll apply towards your balance, and the excess will be refunded to you. So you can go ahead and do that now. And then a bill will be generated always the 5th of the month after you register. So y'all are registering in July. So you will get a bill the 5th of August that will be due the end of August. For the winter, I believe you will register in September. So you'll get a bill the 5th of October due the end of October. And then for the spring, you will register in December. So you'll get a bill January 5th due the end of January. Loans are always going to appear about 2 weeks before the start date. So if you go into your eBill at that point, you will see kind of your loan showing up as anticipated aid at that point. As long as it's showing up as anticipated aid, it applies towards your balance, which you will see on there. But aid does not officially disperse until either 10 days or 7 days, depending on the term, before the start date each quarter. And then aid will disperse, and then the excess will be sent to your bank account if you've set up Bank Mobile. And that happens a week to 5 days before classes start every term. So your bill shows up 5th of the month after you register. About 2 weeks before the term starts, you'll see aid is estimated aid. Aid disperses 10 days or 7 days before the start date, and then the excess is sent to your bank account about 5 days before the start date. And then the balance is due, as I said before, always at the end of the month after you register. As long as you have anticipated or estimated aid, it counts towards your balance, so your balance will have been settled. If you are not settled by the end of the month after you register, there will be a late fee. If you owe over $500, it's an $80 a month late fee. If it's under $500, it's $40 a month. But don't panic, you won't be dropped from classes. If you're wondering, why you're not settled, you can certainly come see me or Jerry Cunningham, who is in our registrar's office. And we'll go through all of this at your entrance counseling as well. Okay, so some other factors to consider when you're putting together a budget. You've probably heard the phrase before, live like a law student now so that you can live like a lawyer later. One thing that you're certainly going to have to think about is getting books. Books can be expensive, I think, particularly in the first year. And a lot of your first year professors are not going to allow you to have technology in the build or in the classroom. So you're going to need hard copy books. I think even if for the ones who do allow technology, students get those hard copy books so they can highlight, really have that physical book. So they can be expensive. You will see it's built into cost of attendance, but just note that it is going to be quite a hefty expense. Another thing that I just want to make y'all aware of, in the state of Texas, you start the process to become a licensed attorney when you're a first year law student. And even at orientation, you're going to hear from the Board of Law Examiners, who's the licensing entity in the state of Texas. And you're going to file something called a Declaration of Intent when you're a 1L. You don't have to, but if you're planning to become an attorney in the state of Texas, we strongly recommend that you do it. It's $190 if you do it in the first year. If you wait, it's going to be an additional $150. And then in your third year, you're going to sit to take the bar exam. And that is $500 to just sit and take the bar exam. If you don't do it by kind of the priority deadline, it's an additional $150. And if you're really late, it's an additional $300. So you definitely want to pay attention to those deadlines, but just note that that is money that you are going to have to spend in your third year of law school. Now, you can get a cost of attendance adjustment for that. But I just don't want anybody to be taken aback by that fee. Now, you cannot get a cost of attendance adjustment for bar exam classes. So once you graduate, for most of y'all, it's going to be the summer after you graduate, you're going to take a commercial bar prep class. Barbary is the most common one for our students. These can cost several $1,000s. So I just don't want that to be a surprise. You will hear from Barbary at orientation. There's ways to work with them or work for them where you can cut some money off of those bar exam prep classes. But virtually everybody does take a bar exam prep class. And I don't want that cost to take you by surprise. Another thing, just to make sure you know, is you will need a laptop. You will take final exams on a laptop. You will sit for the bar exam on a laptop. So if you have an old laptop, just note that it may die at some point and you might have to get a new one, that you will need a laptop throughout law school. So I don't want you to be surprised by that. And then the last thing sometimes people don't think about is you're going to need a suit or two, not right away, but by the end of your first year, you will need a suit. Then in your third year, you will need several suits. There might be other kind of interview or travel expenses related to interviews that you need to be thinking about. So as you're planning a budget, just make sure you know about all of these things and that you've thought through all of these expenses so that you're not surprised. Okay, so some other ways to get money outside of the kind of scholarship and loans that I've already talked about. Obviously, a big way is in summer off-quarter clerkships. You'll be hearing a lot from the career development team over the upcoming months. Sometimes those summer jobs, summer clerkships can pay pretty well. We always encourage you to live frugally, even when you're making pretty good money, and kind of squirrel some of that away um, for some of those expenses I was talking about, or to reduce your loans in your second and third years. We also publish a weekly list in our student announcements of writing competitions with deadlines coming up. These tend to be for current students. Writing competitions, private scholarships, please pay attention to these. There's not a lot of competition for them. It can be a great way to make some extra money. If you haven't had the opportunity to go to the Access Lex Scholarship Data Bank, Google that. I highly recommend you go to that data bank. It's a great, really robust data bank of private scholarships and writing competitions. Already talked about kind of upper level scholarships. If you come in with, less than 24,000, we can bump you up if you do well in your first year. And there also are some small awards at the end of the year. We do a big law day ceremony. If you do really well in a class or on a particular team, there might be some small monetary awards there as well. And then I also encourage you to check with your local bar associations, check with any civic organizations that you or a spouse or a parent are involved with. A lot of times they can have small scholarships as well. One thing I don't list on here, but I want to make sure y'all know about, if you're doing any sort of public interest work in the summer, we also have a public interest stipend. You will hear from Director Sims about ways to get that money kind of later on in your time in law school. All right, so what are you going to need to do while you're in law school? The steps that I already talked about, you're going to have to do them once here before the fall, and then again every summer if you take summer classes. So you should not have to do anything again until next summer, where you will need to apply for a loan for the summer. You will hear about at orientation Access Lex Max. Access Lex is a nonprofit. They do a lot of basically financial counseling, law school advocacy, and they provide free access to something called Access Lex Max, which is free personal finance course specifically targeted towards law students. They have some really great sessions and really great scholarships connected with those sessions. You'll learn all about this at orientation, but I encourage you to take advantage of that. And then that organization also has something called Access Connects, which is free individualized loan counseling for you, whether you're an incoming student, current student, or alumnus. So I encourage you to take advantage of that as well. Once again, save for those future expenses that I talked about, so you're not taken unaware. And then adjust your loans based on your experience. If you take out full cost of attendance and then realize I don't actually need all this money, you can always contact the financial aid office and say, hey, I actually want to return some of that. And then a question I get all the time is about deferring other loans. If you have undergraduate loans or other graduate school loans, the vast majority of your servicers are going to be a part of something called the clearinghouse. So basically, on the 12th day of school every quarter, the university submits a list of everybody who's enrolled to something called the clearinghouse, and the lenders check the clearinghouse. If you're listed as somebody who's enrolled, your loans are automatically deferred while you're in school. If your servicer is not a part of the clearinghouse, and once again, there are very few who are not, you can call and ask them for an in-school deferment form, and you can bring that to me or to anybody in the registrar's office, and we can get that signed for you once you're a student here. And then the last thing I want to mention is just who to contact for what. If you have any general financial aid questions, clarifying questions, or just don't know where to go, you can always come to me. I'm here in the admission suite on the first floor. You can call me, you can email me. If you have specific account questions, I may send you to the One Stop, which is over on main campus. The financial aid and the cashier's office are both on main campus, and they're part of this One Stop. And so I might send you there. They're the ones who actually package the financial aid, can actually put hands on your account. But it's a big entity, and I realize sometimes you might want to come to me first. If you ever have a less than positive experience with them too, please let me know. A lot of times I can kind of be a go-between. And that is pretty much all I had. As I said, we will be meeting to go over your accounts in detail with that entrance counseling. And feel free to ask questions at any point.